He didn't hit anybody, but when police arrived, he refused to drop the weapon and was shot to death. Travel difficult to hazardous in a swath of the country from Texas to West Virginia because of wintry weather. The Arkansas Department of Transportation warning many of the roads are glazed with black ice.
Do not be fooled by what you're seeing or what you're not seeing. It is slick and it is cold out there.
Arkansas Department of Transportation spokesman Dave Parker. America is listening to Fox News.
Wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year from your friends at Security Title. As we clean house for the new year, this is an excellent time to make sure the title to your land is also in order. It doesn't matter if you own a ranch in Inarajan, a house in Dedido, or a hotel in Tumon. Keeping the ownership clear promotes peace in the family and can avoid future misunderstandings. When it comes to your family property, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
The city of Memphis says there are more video and audio recordings of the Tyree Nichols beating, and we will see and hear them eventually.
The chief legal officer of Memphis said the city's holding all additional video and audio from the January 7th traffic stop that led to the death of Tyree Nichols until an investigation is done, and that should be in the coming weeks. She said they're looking into potential misconduct by other personnel. Meanwhile, the family of Nichols and faith leaders spoke out ahead of his funeral. Bishop Talbert Swan II of the Church of God in Christ.
Nationwide, police have killed roughly 3 people per day consistently since 2020.
Vice President Kamala Harris will be at the funeral. 5 police officers face murder charges in connection with the death. Jill Nato, Fox News.
An appeals court in Illinois has upheld a temporary restraining order blocking the enforcement of the state's 3-week-old law banning semi-automatic weapons. The law prohibits the manufacture or possession of handguns and rifles of semi-automatic type. It also requires people who already own such weapons to register them with the state police. The law was enacted after the July 4th parade shooting in suburban Chicago last summer. 2 exotic monkeys are back at the Dallas Zoo after evidently being stolen.
2 emperor tamarin monkeys taken from the zoo Monday were found in a closet of an abandoned home just south of Dallas Tuesday. Police say they were acting on a tip, but no arrests have been made. The monkeys' enclosure have been cut open. The animals have been returned to the zoo. Police are still looking into the suspicious death of an endangered vulture earlier in January, and a leopard went missing after someone cut an opening into the enclosure's fencing. The big cat was found the same day. A similar gash was also found in an enclosure of langur monkeys, though none got out. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA. Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tenactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Looking for a new home or that special place to spend your retirement? Century 21 Realty Management has the place for you. Ladera Towers Condominium in Manila. Luxury living you deserve. Amenities like a gourmet kitchen, a large jacuzzi tub, private lanai with a magnificent ocean view, and 24/7 security. Other amenities, large swimming pool, couple of tennis courts, 3-bedroom condo units are available right now. This is an opportunity you should look at now before they're all gone. Call Call us now at Century 21 Realty Management, 647-5003, or visit the website, LaderaTowerGuam.com or GuamProperties.com.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Right, Jose?
I feel very sorry for that table.
Yeah. Okay, another episode of Tall Tales. Here we start out with Zemi Cotney. Yesterday was a red letter day for Zemi Cotney, our version of Meet the Press, because yesterday the Daily News actually got a blue star. So is this a sign, perhaps, Jose, that the Daily News is starting to get its mojo back?
Let's hope so.
Now, here we go today. Today they're picking on Santa Claus.
What?
Yeah. Our view, we don't want to be like the nations that practice caning as judicial punishment. And there's a picture of Santa Claus talking into a microphone right there.
He's checking his list.
Uh-huh. Senator Duane said Nicholas' bill to allow caning as a form of judicial punishment has been introduced in the legislature, and given our island's frustration with crime, there are some residents who support it, in support of it. But as much as we would like to see criminals punished, we have to resist the urge to incorporate beatings, torture, and infliction of pain as part of our community strategy for dealing with crime. We just save that for the ordinary citizens who we suspect may have some kind of disease, right? According to the bill, the island is suffering from an increase in crime, and we need, quote, a more effective form of punishment that will dissuade and deter potential criminal perpetrators. Throughout human history, we have had no shortage of innovative punishments to deter crimes. Amputation, branding, keel hauling, flogging. Boy, those were the good old days, huh, Jose?
Tar and feather?
Tar and feathers, the rail, boiling in oil, the thumb screw, the rack.
And that was just your grade school days.
Yeah. And yes, caning have all been used as crime-fighting techniques, and sometimes they have been part of societies where there is the perception of little or no crime. Take some of the enlightened countries mentioned in St. Nicholas's bill. Gutter. Now, you probably never heard of a country named Gutter, because 99% of the people who see it in print will mispronounce it, including some of the turkeys on TV. Q-A-T-A-R is not pronounced Qatar. It's gutter. Or it's cutter, because the Q in Arabic represents a sound that doesn't exist in English. It's back at the back of your throat. It requires a linguist would call a fricative. There's a little friction there at the back of your throat, and it's in between cutter and gutter. So just so that people know that I know what the hell I'm talking about, I always refer to that country as gutter. And anyone who is from that country is a Qatari. He's not a Qatari from Qatar. So this is a good test here for see if people know what they're talking about or if they're just trying to act smart. Anyhow, back to the editorial. Take some of the enlightened countries mentioned in San Nicolas's bill. Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Brunei, all practice caning. They're also listed as nations that have lousy human rights records. One report from 2020 described the situation in Brunei, quote, significant human rights issues included cases of degrading treatment or punishment, caning, and, although not in practice, stoning and amputation.
Well, those are both legal on Guam.
Stoning and amputation, yeah.
We won't go into details.
You know, amputation is legal if a teenager presents himself with gender dysphoria. Then amputation is legal.
There you go.
Yeah. Then it's okay. Yeah, stoning so long as you use a slingshot to do it.
Oh, I thought you meant like you can grow with only 3 plants at a time.
Oh, yeah, it's that kind of stoning is also
But yeah, that's
legal.
right, slinging.
Yeah. Under the section of the report describing torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, this first entry involves caning. The law does not specifically prohibit torture. Caning may be ordered for certain offenses under both secular and Sharia law, which we are trying really hard to implement in some of our cities, Jose. Minneapolis, for example. That's Congressperson Ilhan Omar's desire. The author of the report that I just read from is the United States State Department. San Nicolas bill also mentions Malaysia as a caning success story. The international human rights group Amnesty International disagrees. Malaysia openly practices widespread torture and other ill treatment by subjecting thousands of refugees, migrants, and Malaysian citizens judicial caning each year, the group stated in a report. Quote, under international law, judicial corporal punishment such as caning constitutes torture or other ill treatment, which are absolutely prohibited in all circumstances. To comply with international law, the Malaysian government must abolish judicial caning altogether. As tempting as it is to want to hurt people who hurt us, Bill 21 is a bad idea. Well, this is a real editorial, Jose. You know, it describes a problem, it comes to a resolution, affixes blame, it does all the things that an editorial should do. So I'm going to give it a half star, and I'm going to explain why. This is what a half star looks like on Tall Tales. And the reason is this. Why do we have to look at something as will-o'-the-wisp as international law?
I was gonna ask that question after you were done.
Yeah. You know, if you've got something, if you have a legal proposition and you are so courageous as to try to persuade me as to the righteousness of your legal proposition, don't even think about trotting out international law. I have no use for international law whatsoever. I hold the United Nations slightly below the Mayor's Council as far as a deliberative body is concerned. So, you know, there are good reasons to be against caning. I'm not in favor of caning myself, but I don't need to look at a bunch of liberals cloaking themselves in the majesty of international law to reach that decision.
It just sounds so smart, Bob.
They do, yeah.
International.
Yeah. Now, there is something called natural law. You know, if you want to make a head on Tall Tales, say natural law, but not international law.
And nothing good ever comes from trying to circumnavigate natural law.
No, absolutely not. So I mentioned when we first started talking about this, back in the day when I was teaching at John F. Kennedy, actually at Tumon High School before it came John F. Kennedy, the vice principal for discipline had a paddle in his office. And if you brought a misbehaving child to his office, and he was the judge, jury, executioner, public defender, you name it, right? If he decided that the misbehavior was serious enough to merit paddling, he would announce the number of strokes, usually no more than 3. He would execute the penalty himself or give the teacher the opportunity to execute the penalty. I never did that, and I never asked for the penalty, and I explained before. My analysis was that this would only tend to breed resentment in the child who was going to be in my class for the rest of the year. So I didn't need to beat resentment into his butt when it was already something of a problem. I don't know how that would work as far as adults is concerned, but you know, it's one way for us to get earned media. It's, you know, we'll make national press if we. In fact, I'm surprised we haven't already. And the whole rest of the world, except the countries that, except maybe for Qatar, are going to say they want me to go on vacation there. No, I don't think so. I got spanking. You know, my mom would take after me with a hairbrush when I was a kid. And my dad had this big, thick belt that he never had to do anything other than pull it out from the belt loops on his trousers. That was good enough. So, no, this is not a good idea, Daily News. It's not a good idea at all. But you don't need to do this old lefty trick. Well, it's against international law.
And who are they quoting? I'm guessing Amnesty International.
Of course, yeah.
That is not an authority.
No, on anything.
Not even on international law.
Absolutely not.
You know, St. Nicholas should have kept to coal in the stockings.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm going to go out of order here just a little bit. Oh, wait a minute. I haven't even gone into the card yet. Starting out with the card, you remember the other day Robert Underwood hypothesized the existence of the Proud Boy wannabe. And we have come up with a rendering of the Proud Boy wannabe, which Jose will pop up on the screen here in a moment. And according to a friend of mine, Underwood was accusing me of being a Proud Boy wannabe. And this is the rendering right here. I'm thinking about having Kaz Endo make it into a badge. On top, Bob is a Proud Boy wannabe. And wearing that around, per Robert Underwood, wearing that badge around all over town. But one of the things that Robert said that Proud Boy wannabes do is they say things like, "Make Guam great again." Now, I hadn't been doing that, and of course, Robert has a serious case of Trump derangement syndromes. He couldn't talk about Proud Boy wannabes on Guam without introducing the name of Donald Trump. Classic case of TDS. So I hadn't been using the Make Guam Great Again up until, but now I've decided I better do it because it sounds like a good idea. Guam was great. We lost it during the pandemic. We lost a lot, and now it's trying to get him back and make Guam great again. So now I have a list of 11 things that I'm going to do here on this show to make Guam great again. First of all, I'm going to combat government identity politics like Robert and Michael Bavacqua, the star of the Monday morning show, Monday afternoon show known as Hope Cristobal, people of that ilk. 2, I'm going to advocate an efficient, effective government operating within the rule of law that provides basic government services on at least a break-even basis. I don't think basic government services consists of caning people. Do you, Jose?
No.
No. Even though it's probably a low-cost option. 3, I'm going to back the stationing of Marines on the island. 4, I'm going to champion free speech. 5, I'm going to root out systemic racism. 6, I'm going to encourage a market economy and free enterprise. 7, I'm going to combat abortion. 8, I'm going to keep our government honest. 9, I'm going to fight separatism. 10, I'm going to oppose anti-militarism, like Sabina Paris, who gets her day in the sun today, Jose. Yeah, Sabina made it today. And number 11, I'm going to fight government proclivacy. And that will be, I'll get to that on the first item of the card. So that's the first item on the card. Give the land back to the original owners. Let's spend $10 million doing it, okay? Second item on the card is the governor versus workers. Third item on the card is the Ethics Commission versus ethics. Next item on the card is Savella versus Jerry Kitchen. Now that actually, I maybe should have tied that in with today's editorial, but I'll remind you of the editorial when I get there. Next, I'm going to I'm going to pick up Patrick Artero versus Department of Agriculture, and it's not what Patrick did at the Department of Agriculture, it's what he didn't want to do. But it's okay, that's the right sound effect. This is a little different wrinkle here. It's what Patrick didn't want to do. And then next I've got Okada versus Barnett. And I tell you what, I'm kind of glad that although he's not a Republican, I'm kind of glad he made it, Jose.
Did you hear him this morning on Ray's show?
I did, yeah.
That was fiery.
Yeah. Yeah, because, there's an old story about, there was this deep hole full of manure, and in order to get the manure out of the hole, there was a guy in the very bottom who scooped up a bucket. He'd hand it to a man above him, and it would go up like 10 different people that got to the top, and the guy on the top would pour the bucket into a wagon, right? Guess which one of those guys Chris Barnett is? Chris Barnett is the guy on the very bottom. You know why? He don't take no from nobody.
He's John Wayne of the Senators.
Yeah, he don't take no. I can't use the correct word here, but I think you know what I'm driving at, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe we refer to Chris Barnett from now on as the guy on the bottom.
The guy in the bottom.
The guy in the bottom of the hole. Yeah. I would say that rather than the usual bit by bit, piece by piece way we go through the calendar, I used a holistic approach there, Jose. Is your snare drum broken today?
I'm just laughing too much.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. So then we've got Patrick, as you were, we've got Sabina versus Crow. And then we've got Doug versus Esteves, the Carl versus Milton Morinaga, which we talked about yesterday, but there's a little bit more to the story. Okay, so digging into the story, into the card here today, you notice that number 11 on my list is I'm going to fight governmental proclivacy, right? And a definition of proclivacy is someone who spends without carefree abandon and not paying any attention to the consequences. I would use the word spendthrift. That would work. I'm not going to use the word drunken sailor. I have too much respect for navies, for sailors, to damn them the way I'm going to when I start talking about our governor. It's just a false equivalency to compare our governor with a drunken sailor, Jose, because drunken sailors don't spend that kind of money. For one thing, they're spending their own money. So we started out with a story yesterday about the land bank and how the governor wants $10 million this year and $2 million every year thereafter if the land bank has the money. And we got to take this money and we've got to give it to people who were paid for their land by the national government twice, but now is being used by the U.S. government or the government of Guam, and they'll never be able to get it back. So we got to pay them again for that land. Next item on the card here is government versus workers. And I have a letter, nobody really picked this up very well, a letter dated January 31 from the governor, General Pay Plan Adjustment Appropriation Act of 2023. And it's a letter to the speakers. So the type's a little fine, but I think I can stumble through it here. She cites a statute, and then says the Department of Administration authority to review compensation structures and administrative policies for employment compensation within GovGuam to adopt, administer a unified pay schedule on the pay methodology to reassign pay grades as necessary and to delegate authority to assess and update the unified pay schedule to agencies as appropriate. So she cites the authority of the Director of Administration to do like a hay study. And I'll just take you straight to what accountants would call the bottom line. She says, on January 31, I approved a 22% increase to the general pay plan as recommended by the Director of Administration. So every oscillating Richard and others in the department, in the government of Guam, will get 22% more money than they were making last year. 22%.
Even half of that is amazing.
It is. That is a big chunk. Yeah. And I suppose this is to reward their loyalty for staying home and shutting up during the pandemic while they were still on the payroll, right? 22%.
Wow.
Now, that's what I call proclivacy. You can see I would never accuse the governor of spending like a drunken sailor. You'd have to have a whole battleship of really, really drunken sailors to keep up with her. So where's the outrage out there? People in the private sector, I call this governor versus workers. And I suppose I'm kind of going to the left there when I talk about workers, but, the left doesn't consider workers part of the government. The workers are the proletariat, right?
They absolutely are deeply embedded in the government, and not the government-like politics of it. They they have to understand that every single dime that they give is paying for, and every single dime that we give is paying for these government workers.
Absolutely. $22,000 salary increase.
Well, I heard this morning a certain senator, I won't say his name, talk about free money. He was talking about a different subject, but he always talking about this free money.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, he's talking about money from the government, which is not free.
Absolutely.
Even if it comes from the federal government, it's not free.
No, it isn't. Well, here's a $10 million. Here's a big increase. So $10 million to the people that have been paid for their land a couple of times, $22 million percent to the government employees, and then I go on to the Ethics Commission. And I've titled this Ethics Commission versus Ethics. Ethics Commission approves pay raise for director, new staff positions. Commissioners for the Guam Ethics Commission. Now, why didn't they just say ethics? They can't get this right, can they? I suppose that somebody wanted to use the word board, right? Commissioners for the Ethics Commission approved a 3-step pay raise for the agency's executive director and the creation of several new staff positions responding for handling ethics investigations during a board meeting Monday. Executive Director Jesse Kanga will see a raise of $13,164, resulting in an annual salary of $95,235 on staffing patterns. Kanga received an average performance rating of 4.5 out of 5 from commissioners. I'd give him about a 2, Jose. You know, the first thing he did when he took over as the executive director was say, well, you know, I've been appointed by the commission, but I've got to be confirmed by the legislature. No. I mean, such a basic point as that.
And wasn't the second thing he asked for more money?
And then the second thing, he goes to the legislature tenure. You know, that it would take a supermajority of the commission to can him and more money. Yeah, so he knows how the game is played. And of course, at the beginning, the Ethics Committee was created at the beginning of the Leon Guerrero administration. And for well over a year, they did nothing. Well, we don't have counsel. We need rules and regulations. We don't have a building. We don't have an executive director. So therefore, all we can do is draw our $50 a month stipend.
So anything done a year later is a vast improvement, but it's not raise-worthy.
Certainly not. Certainly not. Yeah, and you know, if and I don't know how they pegged the numbers, 4.5, but, you know, you expect government employees, especially managers, you expect them to be excellent. You know, being average is not good enough.
Or just fulfilling the job description.
Exactly. Showing up on time and staying awake for 8 hours is a little more complicated. Vice Chairwoman Marilyn Bora said the above average, of course, pay increase was subject to Kanga's success at quickly expanding the Ethics Commission's handling of complaints and the ethics training of government employees. Quickly handling the complaints? Man, I'd sure as hate to see him dragging his feet. He'd have to hire somebody in his early 20s. And just based on rating factors, but also just through the fast track expectations. And this Marilyn Bora, I'm not sure I know her. I wonder if she's down at one of the nightclubs down in San Vittorio serving as a stand-up comedian, Jose.
Hopefully.
Yeah. That's not a comparison to others that have the resources and have everything set up for them. So I think it's unique in that, Borja said. The increase passed unanimously. Commissioner Daphne Leon Guerrero said a metric could be created to standardize the increases next year. So we're already talking about how they're going to have increases next year.
So it's not based on merit?
No, it's based on the passage of time. I have no issue at all with your performance. I think you've been doing an amazing job. But I think it would be more helpful in this discussion. So it's more fact-based and data-driven. What is this? Daphne Leon Guerrero doing her Kamala Harris imitation? The Ethics Commission was activated in 2019. What year is this, Jose?
2023.
Yeah. But began accepting complaints just last March.
2022.
Yeah. Only took them 3 years, but the pace was just breathtaking.
Maybe that's why it's in 3 increments.
Yeah. According to staffing patterns, the commission staff consisted of just 3 program coordinators and Kanga at the close of fiscal year 2022. 3 program coordinators. Now I've read their agendas. I don't see the work for 3 people there. Okay, we're gonna take a short break, and I've got Senator Chris Duenas hanging on to talk about profligacy. I'll finish this up, and then we'll go to Senator Chris Duenas right after the break, Jose.
Wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year from your friends at Security Title. As we clean house for the new year, this is an excellent time to make sure the title to your land is also in order. It doesn't matter if you own a ranch in Inarajan, a house in Dededo, or a hotel in Tumon. Keeping the ownership clear promotes peace in the family and can avoid future misunderstandings. When it comes to your family property, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Attention investors, Century 21 Realty Management is proud to present an investment opportunity you have to look at. Ladera Towers Condominium provides luxury living centrally located in Manila with access to the entire island. Ladera Towers has 3-bedroom condominium units available now. See them before they're all gone. 4-bedroom units sold out. This investment is only going to appreciate in value. Call now. Century 21 Realty Management. The number 647-5003. Or visit laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So all Jesse Kanga had to help him there at their digs was 3 program coordinators. And now the commission approved the creation of 3 new positions. First, an Ethics Investigation and Compliance Officer 1 starting at $40,762. 2, Ethics Investigation and Compliance Officer 2 starting at $45,014. 3, Senior Ethics and Compliance Officer starting at $49,897. 4, Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer starting at $65,623. Now compare this to what we're paying cops. You know, I think it'd be a well-paid cop to make $40,000. This is fraud, waste, and abuse. King has said that the creation of the new positions will be handed off to the legislature for review. Well, Jesse, once again, you don't know what you're doing. That's not how you create a position. Check out Title IV and educate yourself as to how new positions are created, not by handing it off to the legislature.
This is a $95,000 position.
Yeah.
Coming from, yeah.
Yeah. The agency will be requesting a budget of $544,177 from the legislature for next year. That's up from the current budget of $355,275. So this is my question. The word ethics, and I would submit that there probably isn't anybody on that commission that knows anything about ethics, about teleological versus deontological ethics, things like what's his name? I had it right on the tip of my tongue.
From the port?
Immanuel Kant.
Oh,
and the categorical imperative, Cartesian ethics. You know, ethics means, you know, when you ask someone, do you understand ethics? Oh, yeah, I know all about it. What does it mean? Well, it means doing the right thing and not the wrong thing. I suspect that's all you'd get out of any of those folks on there. But is it ethical? Is it ethical to spend this kind of money when you're not doing your job and when you know how badly the civilian community is in the hole and how bad the government's finances are to come in and hand out $13,000 raises, hire all these people when you've produced absolutely nothing in 4 years? Is that ethical?
How is the commission created? Is it appointed?
Yeah, appointed by the governor, confirmed by the legislature.
That's why.
Yeah.
Yes, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, I suppose one of the things that somebody on the Ethics Commission would have to remember is that it's probably an impossibility for anyone working for the governor to be unethical, just like it's impossible for anyone working for the governor to violate the Manny Hatch Act, even when they persuade a candidate who wants to resign to stick around for 2 more. It's okay. It's all right, boy. Okay, so let's find out what Chris Duenas wants to say. Tell me a little bit about profligacy, Chris.
Yeah, half a day, Your Honor, Honorable Marine, Honorable Senator, my favorite talk show host. Yeah, I wanted to make an observation on proclivity, and I wanted to go a little deeper as to what I think is really going on here as well. See if you might concur.
I'll give you a shot at it, Chris.
Okay. I think there is an effort to just do whatever to try to spend the additional revenue that's coming into the government to try to ensure that the governor, this administration will not have to deal with, and we really need to push this and push the committee to get a hearing on that bill to reduce the BPT from 5 to 4. And I can't see any other reason with the revenues continuing to come in at this level than just running out there and trying to, like you said, I would never, I don't want to besmirch sailors either, because sailors are some of my best friends. But I really think that there's a lot at play here with regard to that, and I'm looking forward to and can't wait for the public hearings on these proposals. Because the bigger insult really right now is, and you're right, I hope there's outrage during those public hearings on those bills, not only just from the private sector and workers businesses that are struggling to keep their workers, businesses that are struggling to stay alive. And the other part of it really is that, I mean, where in the heck did we just throw out all of our priorities here? We barely have enough cops. We don't have enough cops at all to cover what we need in terms of keeping our streets safe, trying to get this meth issue under control. Customs officers, dogs, schools are falling apart. Everything's falling apart around us in our government, but we just can't wait to throw millions of dollars in places that it just doesn't belong at this point. And those will be my points on those public hearings, Your Honor. And that's where my outrage will be expressed, because at this point, it's just unconscionable. I mean, from the moment this administration came in, I mean, there were so many complaints before, with under the Cabo administration, even with raises that pale in comparison with what we're looking at now. From day one, significant increases in all levels at the front office. I mean, just thousands and thousands of dollars just heaped all over the place. And now, with the revenue coming in the way it is, and it's very clear that we are literally extracting way too much money in taxes out of the private sector, bleeding the private sector, and just going out and throwing an absolute party after party within the government. And I won't stand for it, and you'll see that during the public hearings.
Chris, when Eddie Calvo took over, the outgoing administration had passed a gigantic hay-type increase. And I think the first thing that the governor did, Governor Eddie Calvo said, we're not going to implement that because we can't afford it. Remember that?
Exactly. I totally remember that.
Yeah. That's what you call statesmanship.
Exactly. And now I mean, the only basis that appears to be put forward here is just the Department of Administration saying it's so.
Yeah.
And across the board, it doesn't make any sense. All this stuff should be part of their budgets if they even want to propose it, and it should be performance-based, and it should have a metric.
But of course, they built the same trap that they built for the teachers' increases last time around. Remember that? She's already put the raises in place. And then she said, you guys got to appropriate so much money. So you're put in a position, if you don't appropriate as much money, and she say, sorry, folks, I can't keep those raises because of the legislature.
Exactly. Exactly and precisely. And the other insult was she used the very, very, very precious, obviously precious millions of dollars now and got some scribbled on approval from US DOE, supposedly, to spend the first $23 million out of the ARP money for infrastructure improvements in the schools and then hand it to the legislature. But I'm of the opinion, since the budget is not passed, it's another same maneuver. But I'm under the opinion since the budget submittal will come to us, obviously with containing this information as such. But this looks like a transmittal at this point. I haven't seen the actual bill, but it looks like a transmittal for basically saying, you know, I think she's actually trying to say she probably wants to use it now and get it done as soon as this bill's passed.
That's what her letter says. Her letter says effective January 31, the raises went in place.
Yeah, I think that that without that appropriation, she's going to have to eat it, and I don't know that appropriation is going to come forward.
Well,
you see, that's an executive order.
That's the point, Chris. Is she going to have to eat it, or are you guys going to have to eat it? Because she was the generous person. She recognized the hardworking GovGuan employees and gave them a raise, and everything was set, except that the Mosquito legislature hates government employees and wouldn't give a big enough appropriation to pay for that. So they took your raise away from you, GovGuam employees.
Well, we're going to have to see that when it comes forward, because the bill for the appropriation is, in my opinion, is going to have to basically correspond to that action. There's got to be an order for that. I haven't seen an executive order, because that's basically, I believe, how she did the education pay plan. And if that's not the case, then she's going to have, as far as I'm concerned, she's going to have to find that in her own budget.
Well, so far, as soon as that letter gets a little more publicity, she'll already be taking her victory lap, and everything after that is, at very best, an anticlimax. So it might very well be that there needs to be some statutory revision so that she can't use this mousetrap again.
Yeah, I still want to see the mechanism. I'm not convinced that that's. I see the transmittal of the letter. I see the transmittal of calling for the appropriation, but I don't know that she can actually give the pay raise without an appropriation. I want to see the totality of the bill introduction and what it means. I still think it's forward. I'm not sure that that's already issued. I think the plan is issued, but I don't think.
Pursuant to, let's see, I've got the authority here. Pursuant to Chapter 4 and 6 of Title 4 Guam Code Annotated, the Department of Administration has the authority to review compensation, et cetera. So she's citing statute saying she has the authority to do it. So if she doesn't have the authority to do it, Chris, my humble suggestion is you don't want to wait until you're in the middle of the budget. She needs to be set straight now.
I agree. That's why I haven't seen the bill yet. It's got to be a bill form.
No, it's not a bill. You know, let's get clear on that. It's not a bill. She says she has the authority to do it, so she's not going to be sending a bill. She sent a letter out. I have the letter.
And only last night.
Yeah. So you know, once again, a way to react to this is to come back, guns blazing on the letter. And the next day you introduce a bill to take away that authority. That would be but to wait until the budget, I suspect that this is not the time where patience is going to be seen as a virtue, Chris.
I understand.
Yeah. And then as far as the ethics or the unethics commission is concerned, Clint introduced, in fact, you guys passed in the last legislature, the bill Clint introduced that I drafted that said that any of these executive pay raises can only take effect 90 days after they're enacted. And that way, if it were something like this raise for Jesse Kanga during that 90 days, you could take it off the track with a statute. But the governor vetoed that. So these are a couple of tools you guys might want to consider, because, you know, she doesn't have to worry about being reelected now. All she's worried about is her legacy. And my suspicion is that what happens to people in this situation is, you know, I want everybody to have a warm feeling in his tummy about me during the time I don't want to have to take anything away from anybody. I want to give stuff away. That's my thought, Chris.
Got it. Well, I'm going to go back and review that some more then. And like I said, it has to be, and I know that the budget has been transmitted, so I'll also go in and get through the budget tomorrow in terms of at least a cursory review on the request and see if it corresponds with what been supposedly put in place. But we cannot continue like this. It's absolutely outrageous considering the situation and what exists within so many other priorities that need to be handled in our government. So I'll get back to you on my review.
I would say it's not only outrageous, I'm going to say that it's even outdwainious.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll get back to you after my review.
Very good. Thanks, Chris. Okay, we're going to take a short break, and when I come back, I've got our Carl who wants to talk about raises.
Join us at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tenactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mescla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
And now we only got a little time for him, the most dangerous man in the room. If you can't finish up before the halftime show, Carl, we'll let you come back, okay?
All right, Bob. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to comment about this. You know, I live in Dedido, and the Wai-Sing-Song Road has needed repair for probably over 40 years, and they're finally getting.
Are you talking about Sing-Song Road, Carl?
Oh, Sing-Song, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
go ahead.
The right way to pronounce it.
Yeah.
And of course, we had the schools falling apart. My kids went through Benevente Middle School, and the staff there is trying their best to hold things together, but it just like a lot of our schools, they're just falling apart. Look at Southern. And then we have our prison falling apart, and, you can go on. It's a long list. But the problem is that buildings and equipment don't vote. So it's very convenient to avoid that by just ignoring that, all these things falling apart, and focus on gaining or influencing your key voter base, which is GovGuam workers. And I'm not blaming GovGuam workers. If I was a GovGuam worker and someone is foolish enough to do this, well, I got a family to support, so whatever. But, at the local level and the national level, at the national level, we have the same, what is the word, Bob? Profligacy?
Proclivity.
Proclivity. Or
profligacy.
Profligacy. Oh, that's a new word. Never even heard of it.
Well, that's why you listen to Tall Tales. You learn two new words today: profligacy and e-sing song.
Yeah, at the national level, we've got this $32 trillion national debt, and they're actually talking about raising the debt ceiling. I prefer to call it raising the theft ceiling, because at the national level and the local level, what they are really doing is stealing money from our children, from their future. They're the ones that are going to be left holding the bag. They're the ones that are going to have to deal with the high taxes that are going to result because of economic downturns. And, if we've burned through the emergency money from the feds for this COVID thing, they're the ones that are going to have to pay for it, our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. And the politicians will have moved on. They'll have, retired, and they'll be, maybe living in the States. If things fall apart enough here, they've got their money. They can go move back to the States. No big deal. But we need to remember who the ultimate victims of this are. That's the future generations. It's not only us. It's our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren that are going to be left holding the bag. They are spending us into oblivion at the local and national level. And, they just don't care. They're doing it for present political gain, and that's all that matters. And if they destroy the island's economy and the national economy, they don't care. So it's one reason why I am glad that Trump came along, because he made certain people on the right and the left, the Republicans and the Democrats, feel uncomfortable. And I think they deserve to feel uncomfortable. So anything that makes them sweat or feel uncomfortable because of what they've done to our children and our grandchildren, I have no problem with. I think they need to be made to feel uncomfortable as much as possible.
Well, anyway, one of the parts of the read-in that I should be doing today, but I forgot, so I'll do it tomorrow, is that sometimes we comfort the afflicted, sometimes we afflict the comfortable. Got to go to the big halftime show, Carl, but thanks for chipping in.
All right, Bob. Talk to you later.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
2024 presidential race.
Former South Carolina governor and U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, is weeks away from announcing her run for the GOP nomination for president. The Charleston, South Carolina Post-Courier newspaper first reported a confirmed announcement is scheduled for February 15th. She would join only former President Donald Trump as an announced candidate. The newspaper reported Haley even called the former president to say she was considering a 2024 bid. As far as her party is concerned, Haley says it needs a new direction.
Fox's Colonel Scott. Neither the White House counsel's office nor the Justice Department is commenting on the revelation that the FBI conducted a previously unannounced search at the Washington office of the Penn Biden Center back in November. It followed the discovery of documents bearing classified markings there. It's not clear whether any additional documents were found in the follow-on search. The Justice Department has told several congressional committees it cannot share information about the documents found at the president's home until the special counsel investigation is finished. Congressman James Comer, who chairs the House Oversight Committee, says that is clearly a double standard.
If you go on the National Archives website, there's pages and pages of press releases and information about the FBI's raid into Mar-a-Lago and Donald Trump's possession of classified documents. But there's nothing on the website about Joe Biden. There wasn't any press release or anything.
House Speaker McCarthy has created a select committee to investigate whether the FBI and the Justice Department have been weaponized for political purposes. Speaker McCarthy and President Biden are scheduled to meet Wednesday to discuss, among other things, a potential increase in the federal debt limit. America is listening to Fox News.
Attention investors, Century 21 Realty Management is proud to present an investment opportunity you have to look at. Ladera Towers Condominium provides luxury living centrally located in Manila with access to the entire island. Ladera Towers has 3-bedroom condominium units available now. See them before they're all gone. 4-bedroom units sold out. This investment is only going to appreciate in value. Call now, Century 21 Realty Management. The number is 647-5003 or visit laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagatya location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
A year of record high gas prices yields record profits for ExxonMobil.
They posted about a $56 billion profit for 2022. It happened while U.S. consumers were shelling out more than $4 a gallon for most of the spring and summer. Supplies were tight. OPEC was determined to not boost production, and Russia invaded Ukraine. The White House says it's outrageous that Exxon has posted a new record for Western oil company profits after the American people were forced to pay such high prices at the pump amid Putin's invasion. President Biden has said it's possible oil companies may have to pay a war profit tax. Jill Nato, Fox News.
The funeral for Tyree Nichols will be held Wednesday. Vice President Harris announcing she will attend at the invitation of the family. Nichols died January 10th, 3 days after being beaten by Memphis police officers following a traffic stop. 5 Memphis officers have been charged with his murder. A California police officer was shot to death Tuesday in the town of Selma, California, after a resident flagged him down and said they'd seen a suspicious man in their yard. A suspect is in custody. Meeting with South Korean leaders. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announcing the U.S. will deploy more weapon systems to the region.
Secretary Austin stopped short of offering to deploy U.S. tactical nukes in South Korea, where the U.S. has 28,500 troops based, but promised the U.S. would increase the deployment of strategic weapons like the B-1 bombers that participated last November in the largest joint exercises with South Korea in years. The U.S. first deployed tactical nuclear weapons to the Korean peninsula in 1958, but pulled them out in 1991. The U.S. and South Korea plan to hold nuclear tabletop war games in February to improve information sharing and ease South Korea's security jitters. At the Pentagon, Jennifer Griffin, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year from your friends at Security Title. As we clean house for the new year, this is an excellent time to make sure the title to your land is also in order. It doesn't matter if you own a ranch in Inarajan, a house in Dedido, or a hotel in Tumon. Keeping the ownership clear promotes peace in the family and can avoid future misunderstandings. When it comes to your family property, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
The new Subway series includes one of the most craveable sandwiches of them all, the Subway Club.
Number 12, the Turkey Cali Club is the best with avocado, turkey, and bacon.
The best should come with bacon, turkey, and ham. That's my number 10, the All-American Club.
Number 11, the Subway Club is a proven classic that comes with ham too, plus turkey and Angus roast beef.
I see. Let's start over. Let's talk cheese in the Subway series.
I'm still gonna win this. At Subway, you gotta refresh to be fresh. So there you have it, another episode of the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery. Jose, I know you're just dying. You're just so anxious to tell the folks out there and Tailgater Nation how they too could get their pictures on the Tailgaters Rogues Gallery. So go ahead.
Always happy to do so, Bob. You too can get your I'm a Tailgater t-shirt by going to the website at thepoint.gu, the official website of this radio station. Click on the link that has the t-shirt and the beard. It'll bring you to the purveyor. Order your t-shirt. When it arrives, put it on. Take a selfie of yourself, and then send it to the Point's WhatsApp number at 671-797-8255, and you too will be included in the Rogues Gallery.
Very good. I hope to see your smiling faces up there. I recognize a lot of those faces, but not all of them.
It's growing.
Yeah, it's a trend. Okay, I've got a call, a repeat call, and when I first saw, well, let me just get on the line here. You know, I thought maybe I had another Joe here, Jose, because another Joe quite often wanted to ride the merry-go-round 2 or 3 times in the same show. But it's not another Joe. This time it's Chris, Senator Chris, who wants to ride the merry-go-round again. So go for it, Chris.
Yeah, so, Your Honor, just wanted to give you an update on my research. So Bill 2437 has been introduced to the Committee on Rules, and for the implementation of this pay plan, it is an appropriation of $16 million. So I do not think the governor has implemented this at this point. I don't think she could have, and without this appropriation, I don't think she can.
Well, I guess you and I start out by disagreeing right off the bat. But
Okay.
What's the number of the bill again?
So the bill number is 2437, and I've just what do you call that? I'm just saying that this requires the appropriation at this point. And so we'll see how it goes through the process. But it's 2437.
I'll pick it up tomorrow, Chris. Thanks for the heads up.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Okay, so where were we here? I think we were... Next item on the card is Savella versus Jerry Kitchen. And you know, Jose, there's so much crime in the news nowadays, so much really heavy-duty crime. You know, like the expose over on Candid about all of the official corruption. And Ray, from time to time, goes through the magistrates' reports. And it just seems like there's so much serious crime going on this island. And I shudder to think that, am I just going to add a little bit more to the paranoia about this crime wave by going into the next item here on the card? But then I figured, well, you know, Tall Tales is the place where we tell it where it is. So I'm going to go into this next heavy-duty crime, Jose, and then I'll tell you how it relates to Jerry Kitchen. And this ran on KUAM last night, last night. And the headline is, GPD's public information officer found guilty of improper parking in Tucumán. The horror of it all.
Really great investigative reporting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes, they turn over every rock. They look behind every tree. Nothing escapes the stealthy gaze of KUAM reporters, right? And this is that ace reporter, Nick Delgado. And here's what it says. She's the face of the local police department. Now, Officer Berlin Savella finds herself on the other side of the law after getting a traffic ticket. Well, is it traffic or parking? It can't, you know, you got to be moving to get a traffic ticket, right? She fought it in Superior Court, where a judge found her guilty. Yeah. But internally on the force, KUAM News has confirmed that officers were told from GPD management not to investigate.
Wait, what?
I don't know what you'd have to do to investigate a traffic ticket.
Did they stop programming for this story?
Yeah.
We now bring you to your regular program.
Yeah. And now we go on with the story. The people of Guam versus defendant Berlin Savella. Savella, the public information officer of the police department, has been found guilty of illegal parking and disobeying parking signs. I don't know. Is rehabilitation possible with something like this, Jose?
It could take years, Bob.
The case unfolding last December 18. Savella, who was off duty at the time, was ticketed by a fellow cop for parking her car in a no parking zone in Tucumán. Oh, I wish we had a break coming up, Jose. It's just the stress, the strain of going through something this shocking. She was found parking in an illegal parking zone in Tucumán. Images filed in court show other cars parked in the same area. No word if they too were ticketed. I wonder if she tried to defend on the defense of selective enforcement.
Was there video showing her running away from the said violation?
Well, I hope not for her sake. You do that in Memphis, that could be more serious than whatever. Savella contested the case in traffic court last Thursday, but the courts ruled against her, and she was ordered to pay $40 plus court costs. Wow, this will go on her permanent record. You know, forget about, you know, maybe she had ambitions of the FBI, DEA, you know, with something like this on her record, her career is...
How will she face the public, Bob?
I don't know. I kind of feel sorry for her. She doesn't look like she's very old. There's a picture of her in the paper, in the story here. Following the incident now more than a month ago, and after the conviction, oh, hang on, Jose. After the conviction, Savella remains on duty. What is this world coming to?
How dare they introduce corruption in the force?
Illegal parking, and they let her remain on duty?
She has a walking beat.
Wow. Police Chief Stephen Ignacio admits no internal affairs investigation was performed. Wow. Telling KUAM News, because you only have one opportunity to impose discipline. Although she was found guilty, it's my understanding that those signs where she received traffic violations have been removed because they were not placed there by DPD. You know, leave it to Steve Ignacio, no matter what, to say something really, really stupid.
From the get-go, Bob.
From the get-go. So now he's saying, well, I guess she was really, you know, it's kind of like Coe down at the port. You know, they fired him because he couldn't come to work, and they fired him because he couldn't carry a gun. They didn't fire him because he was a rapist. But then after he had 2 rape trials and was found not guilty in the rape trials, well, we got to give him his job back because he was not guilty. Oh, you mean he came to work during... Oh, no. I mean, he was not guilty of the... Oh, same... And the story goes on. So she came forward, the alleged... Let's see. Okay, then the story goes on to say that the decision not to investigate internally depends on the number of infractions an officer has on their record. Discipline was administered, said the chief. You know, and he goes from one stupid thing to another. Said the chief, I cannot tell you what kind because...
Did not.
It's a personnel matter. You know, I've got another, today, you know, the farewell to the president, on May 19th, 2021, he made a joke at the expense of dull Coast Guardsmen. But I think maybe I ought to replace that with the life and times of Steve Ignacio, because he just has the ability to say incredibly stupid things. Yeah. Public Safety Oversight Chair, Senator Chris Barnett, known as the man in the hole, the guy who takes a holistic approach to government problems, said where there's an infraction, big or small, the GPD leadership has a responsibility to investigate that. It really sends the right message to the rank and file officers who are doing their job and playing by the rules. I think the public does and should hold law enforcement officers to a higher standard because we're putting them in this position to police us. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about any incidents of police corruption that I might hear. Now, if it's just a simple parking ticket, Jose, that's not a crime. It's a simple violation. It doesn't it doesn't involve moral turpitude, if you know what that means. It doesn't involve a man-endangering state of mind. It does not involve dishonesty. It does not involve corruption. So, you know, to turn a simple parking ticket into
a federal case shows only one thing: pettiness. Pettiness.
Desperation.
Something like that, yeah. Now, if she tried to talk the cop out of giving her the ticket,
that's a story.
now you got a real story there. Or after she got the ticket, she goes over to the Superior Court in uniform and says, I want to talk to somebody about this ticket. You should retract this ticket because then you got a story. But if she goes to court, and she wouldn't have wasted her time going to court if she didn't have something to talk about. So she goes to court and she's fined $40. She tries to con somebody out of $40 maybe, but wow. According to GPD's general orders under the Code of Ethics, whether on or off duty, law enforcement are sworn to keep their private lives unsullied as an example to all.
Now I see why you say versus red Jeep. There's a big contrast.
Yeah.
Big one here.
Yeah.
And it's glaring, people.
Yeah.
It's glaring, Nick Delgado.
It is. It really is. So now she not only had to pony up $40 and the trouble of going down to court. She has now been branded as someone with who is sullied, because she's supposed to keep her private life unsullied. You know what, Jose? I've had traffic tickets. I've had speeding tickets. Yeah. So I guess, you remember the guy who landed the airliner in the East River because he couldn't make it to Newark? You know what his name was?
Captain Sully.
Captain Sully. Yeah. So I guess.
Maybe she's striving to be a captain. Sully.
So I thought that, maybe I think you're probably right here. It shows a nice contrast in what's really important, what's not really important. Those guys, I don't think KOAM covered them at all.
Zero. And we want to talk about private lives not being sullied?
Yeah. There you go. So I thought that this might have been a deception plan on the part of the chief of police, that he would send out his PR person to complete this horrible, egregious breach of the law, and this would distract attention from Jerrygate. I like your example better.
Giving them too much credit.
Yeah, he wouldn't, and he'd have said something stupid anyhow if he had. So way to work, KUAM. Yeah, and like the way you dug out that, I could see why they didn't dig out the police corruption like Troy did. Going through the papers and everything. He
haven't even touched it.
He was too busy with this.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, multiple interviews.
Yeah.
Grabbed some images.
Had to do some research with the police rules.
Probably was delayed by a FOIA or two.
Maybe not. Had to talk with the chief. Yeah, nice going. Let me see here. Let me just say, strode away for a second, Jose.
Bob is catching his breath.
I had to get something out of my bag.
I thought you had to take a break.
Well, that too. After the emotion involved and somehow getting through that horrible story.
Some recovery is in order.
Yeah. Okay, so let me have a drum roll. I got my green pencil out, and this is what I awarded to the KUAM. That's an arrow pointing to a 0. Yeah. And I should give them a lower grade than a 0, but I think that's as low as you could go. I'll put an F in the middle of the circle there. Yeah, that's some real hard-hitting journalism over there at KUAM. Wow, what are they going to cover next?
He's going to get an Emmy.
Yeah. Well, you mean a Pulitzer Prize?
That too.
Journalism, yeah. Okay, next I've got Patrick Artero versus Department of Corrections. This is another Nick Delgado. And I did some research, and the defendant in the suit is the government of Guam. It's not the Department of Agriculture. And I think I explained why that couldn't be yesterday. And I did a little research, and this was not a 1983 case. This was an Americans with Disabilities Act case or a Rehabilitation Act case. And in those cases, apparently a state or territory can be sued. Thus, the government of Guam in this particular case. And Artero, and I'm just going to pick up a couple of things here. Artero also alleged he received threats from Assistant Yasuki Hoffman Udagawa. Well, I did get a hold of the complaint, and I didn't see anything like that in the complaint, so I wonder where that came from. But I think the real bombshell in this story, first of all, Patrick Artero apparently has a nemesis at the Department of Agriculture named Glenn Dulla, D-U-L-L-A, because Dulla's name was mentioned in the complaint as Artero's supervisor, who, you know, may have been the cause of the problem. The problem as Artero saw it. Now, I want to point this out that Artero made several complaints, right? And then rather than address the threats, the department reprimanded him, initiated an adverse action, threatened his employment through procedures that violated the collective bargaining agreement that governs his employment, and then they really came home with the heavy-duty punishment here, Jose, and then proceeded to detail Mr. Artero, the most senior officer in the department, to the role of dog catcher.
How dare you?
Yeah. So that's why I told you it's not what Artero did here. It's what he didn't want to do. He didn't want to be a dog catcher. He started out as the top investigator on the as you were the invasive species gang. And he winds up dog catcher. That sounds almost something like I'd say on Tall Tales.
Where did he get a parking ticket?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if the spokesperson for the department, for the police department, is going to wind up at agriculture as her just desserts for such a horrible offense. Yeah, but you know, sometimes I joke here on Tall Tales that a public official has performed so poorly that he couldn't get elected assistant dog catcher of Malolo. Yeah, so here's poor Patrick Artero. He'd been a long-time employee at a high-ranking position, and they detail him to the position of dog catcher. So, you know, you read the papers every day, you're liable to find almost anything. Okay, next I've got Okada versus Burnett. I think we'll head for Wrigley Field first.
3 stations, all 3 morning shows. Thanks to all the listeners for Pika's Best, Choice Broadcasting has swept the top 3 best radio stations. The Point, Boss 104, and Star 101. Top 3 radio personalities, Kyle Mandapat, Ray Gibson, and Daryl Lizava. Put the power of Pika's Best to work for you. If you're an advertiser, call 671-888-7346 for information, rates, and packages. And let us get your message out to Pika's Best listeners with Pika's Best Broadcasters. And thanks for listening to Pika's Best.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal Opportunity Lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Yeah, okay, so I've got a story here that ran in the Post today, and the title of it is Okada to Barnett. Now, when we're talking about Okada, we're talking about Mary Okada of the Guam Education Board. And the title of the article is Okada to Barnett, Solving DOE Issues is a Collaborative Effort. Okay, now just to lay a foundation here before I get in there, there's an article in the Post titled Feds Cite GDOE for Health Safety Issues. Fleas Infest D.L. Paris Elementary School. And then there's a picture in the Daily News. Lawmaker, closed gym part of larger issue at public schools. Guam High School gym has been closed for more than 16 months because of potentially dangerous structural problems. And the Department of Education has not yet hired anyone to fix it. I guess we could say they've gone into overtime there, huh? Our students have been struggling without a gym. We can't have pep rallies. We can't do fundraising, etc., stuff like that, said Principal Dexter Fulo. He said he's under the impression that it would take 4 to 6 months to repair the gym, which was closed in September 2021 following an inspection by the Army Corps of Engineers, etc. Okay, then we get to Chris Barnett. Senator Chris Barnett, chairman of the Education Committee, says he plans to hold several school-specific roundtables for George Washington, Simon Sanchez, and Southern, which will be followed up by an oversight hearing to address common issues at schools. I'm getting so many complaints on vendor performance, he said. The Education Department's central office has only one person to prepare the scope of work for school contracts. The Department of Education reportedly has as much as $78 million in federal funding for infrastructure, Barnett said, but the money is not making it to the schools quickly enough. Barnett said his committee requested information about George Washington High Gym, and he expects to receive documents from Guam DOE sometime next week. The Education Department on Tuesday did not respond to the newspaper's question about the status of procuring prepare work for the gym. According to the DOE website, a request for proposals has not been issued in connection with the gym since it was closed. So there's that. And then we know that they're trying to move, Agate, what's the name of that school in Agate? Move that to Southern High. They're trying to move FP Leon Guerrero to Okado because their buildings are falling apart.
These aren't new issues.
No, these are not new issues. The school system, I think I could say, without being criticized for being dramatic, the school system is falling apart. And Chris, the guy down there in the hole who doesn't take anything from anybody, has got what appears to be something that our government really needs, a sense of urgency. Yeah. And, you know, somebody with a sense of urgency is someone who says, I don't have any patience. I don't want to have any patience. Patience to me is a vice, not a virtue. I want to solve problems. And Chris is starting to sound like that, isn't he?
Well, the person at the bottom is usually the one wearing the boots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now back to this article. Okada to Barnett. Solving GOD issues is a collaborative issue. And then the foundation is laid after Barnett visited several schools, etc. And then Okada said she recognized the point that Barnett was trying to get across and said there are more factors in play that have to be taken into consideration. Even though the perception is that the Department of Education has a large sum of ARP funding, there are more projects than the funding can provide. Therefore, we won't do any of them, right? It's only fair. She said GDOE needs to identify funding for everything else that is just as important because there's not enough funding to provide for all the projects. Okada said funding must be allocated properly in order to ensure that everything that needs to be addressed can be addressed. We are really looking at a long-term solution. A long-term solution to the flies up there, DL Paris.
I would say look to the dog catcher.
Yeah. A long-term solution for facilities maintenance and renovation for all of the schools. The projects are very wide. According to Okada, the facility and maintenance issues are just as important as teaching and learning, and both must work in tandem. She stressed that there are many different moving parts, and she is well aware that in order for proper learning and success to occur, the students need to have a safe place to do it. Yeah. So couldn't we just put a couple of hoops out in the parking lot and let the GW basketball team play there instead of fixing the gym? Then we go on to something that's even more profound from Okada. Okada said she believes with more communication and understanding, everyone will be on the same page. Now, what this is doing is she's just saying, Chris, you don't understand. How about shut up and give us a break until you know what's really going on here? Okada said she believes with more communication and understanding, everyone will be on the same page. In other words, they'll be as silent and ineffective as she is, but it'll be a lot more comfortable. I think it's just a matter of Barnett being aware of the different projects that we're trying to roll out and the different goals that we have in moving and advancing the strategic plan the board recently adopted. We're guided by that framework, and also all the work that we do now will be captured, demonstrated, and documented in that framework so that we can see after 1 year or 6 months. Now, does that sound like a bureaucrat or what, Jose?
Absolutely.
We're guided by that framework. And so all the work that we do will be captured, demonstrated, and documented in that framework so that we can see after 1 year, after 6 months, if we've moved the needle in any of these particular areas. And if not, what were the barriers and how do we resolve it? Mrs. Okada, yes, little Johnny. Mrs. Okada, I can't stay in here listening to you any longer. I've got to go over to the toilet and take down my trousers and scratch my butt because the fleas are biting me unmercifully. It's just a matter of communication, little Johnny. And a little understanding and communication, and you and I will be on the same page. Then she goes on with more bureaucraties. It really serves as the baseline for us to identify where we are with certain things. You could probably read the papers and find out where you are with a lot of these things. Access what the problems are. Provide some solutions to it. See what works and what doesn't. A little trial and error go a long way with extermination of fleas, Jose. I suppose first you could say, let's just ignore them. Maybe they'll go away. And then refine the whole process going forward. It's going to be a cyclical thing, but at least as long as we keep it on focus, on target, we'll be able to gauge our progress. Don't you feel better already?
Absolutely.
It really is a collaborative effect that we're trying to establish with Senator Barnett so that we can work together to resolve these issues, talk about it, and ultimately find a solution so that we all win. All right, I gave a hatful of advice to Chris Duenas here, Senator. Chris, I'm going to give you some advice. Forget the collaborative effort. Get in there and do what you've been doing because nothing's going to happen until you do. Do you take any comfort at all from several paragraphs of bureaucratese that says, wait, we have a plan, we'll measure it, we'll capture things? Regardless of how good your plan is, there are times when you just got to stop and get the work done. And fleas in a school is one of those things. Wow. Yeah, so I think maybe I'm becoming a Chris Barnett supporter, Jose. All right, let me see who I got. Our Keith wants to talk about GDUE. Do you want to talk about Chris Barnett, our Keith, or GDUE, or both?
No. My hat is off. I've worked and interacted with and actually worked for government agencies for 27 years. And I got to tell you, what I just heard you read, that's weapons grade bureaucratese. I mean, that was magnificent. The ability to go on for several paragraphs and say absolutely nothing. Really, that's a skill. Not one I want, but that's a skill.
Yeah, it is.
We used to, at one of my jobs, we had a boss who loved to talk like that. And this was before, all the electronic gadgets where you could chime into meetings remotely and all that. So we'd be sitting in this room, and we took a real chance. We passed around these little game cards, and it was a grid of 12, and it was a bingo game. We called it Bolshevika Bingo. And every time that the boss uttered one of the bureaucratese phrases on your bingo card, you made a mark. And the winner got lunch bought for them that day. And funny enough, there was one day when we handed a card to a coworker he was a bit on the slow side. And apparently he didn't quite understand that we weren't supposed to be doing what we were doing. And towards the end of the meeting, he shouts, bingo. He won. Anyway, I tell you what, and it just her speech or whatever it was just reminded me of that. If you ever need an example of a better example of why government gets nothing done, you could just laminate that.
Absolutely.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad. I mean, the government of Guam has received how many tens of millions of dollars? And the schools are just the side of a pay toilet. Where's the outrage from the people?
Well, Mary Okada took all that space, and you said it was industrial, no, military grade bureaucracies.
Yeah, weapons grade.
Weapons grade, yeah. And if you followed along, the weapon was aimed at Chris Barnett. Because number one, Chris really doesn't understand. And then the last sentence reads like this: it's really a collaborative effort that we are trying to establish with Senator Barnett so that we can work together to resolve these issues, talk about it, and ultimately find a solution that we all win. So it's not about fixing the schools. It's about getting Chris to shut up so that they can all walk around, not taking the blame for anything. They can all win.
It's sad. And she was appointed by who, or is she just
elected?
Standard Bob Guam Bob.
And it's surprising because she has done a fantastic job at GCC. I don't know if we're dealing with identical twins who are trying to play a trick on us, or a doppelganger, or a Manchurian candidate, or what, but she did a great job at GCC.
Could it be a case of the Peter Principle?
Well, I would say being on the Education Policy Board, the Education Board is actually a step down from running GCC.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that.
Well, there you go, Arkeith.
Yep. Well, I just wanted to share my thoughts.
I'm glad you did. We always appreciate your comments, Arkeith. Good talking to you.
I want to pick your brain for a second before we go to break, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Because you're from Wisconsin, you probably know this more than I do. There was a time I had a sister that went to high school there, I think for the last, maybe her junior and senior year, Janesville, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, in Janesville, and I don't know how it is all over Wisconsin, they didn't pay taxes for the school, or the school wasn't funded by taxes. It was adopted by Pilot Pen. Is there a Pilot Pen company or factory?
Parker.
Or Parker Pens.
Parker Pen and Chevrolet used to be Janesville. They're both closed down now.
Oh, maybe not anymore then.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in Georgia, at a time, they were thinking of having other corporations sponsor schools or take over. Like IBM was going to get a hold of my high school, and this is right before I left, so I don't know the history behind that. But how much of like what they do with what's that tax break they give to that Gita gives out?
You can get a 20-year write-up forgiveness of income tax, gross receipts, and real property tax.
Fund a project at one of these schools. Is that unattainable? Is that something that can't be looked at or has been looked at?
Well, I suspect it's probably not something that anybody here is going to try, but
because it seems like everyone's looking for that. What's that tax break when when the hospital came in, the GRMC?
Yeah, the Gita qualifying certificate.
Qualifying certificate, QC, yeah. And all they had to do was put artwork in the building, right? Something like that.
There is a law that requires artwork in all public buildings, as I recall.
And they fund for that to be is like commissioned, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look for solutions rather than let's talk about it. Like Barnett's saying, the planning and talking is over with now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what she's really saying is, you talk to me, not the press. That's what she's saying. We can all come out of this winners, yeah. Because you don't really understand how hard this all is.
Okay, next item on the card is we're heading for Churchill Downs. And after that, I've got Sabina versus Crow.
Attention investors, Century 21 Realty Management is proud to present an investment opportunity you have to look at. Ladera Towers Condominium provides luxury living centrally located in Manila with access to the entire island. Ladera Towers has 3-bedroom condominium units available now. See them before they're all gone. 4-bedroom units sold out. This investment is only going to appreciate in value. Call now, Century 21 Realty Management. The number is 647-5003 or visit laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagatnya location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Yeah, here we go. The Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch on Tall Tales again today on a Wednesday. And right now I'm dealing with a bill introduced by Sabina Flores Perez, Miss I Hate the Military. And it's 2237, an act to amend 511, et cetera, relative to updating the prohibition of open detonation and clarifying the implementation of safe alternatives for the protection of Guam's air, water, land, and health of its people. You remember Sabina introduced a bill, no more open burning up there at Taragi Beach, and if you find unexploded ordnance, you cannot explode it. You're just going to have to. We never could figure out what she wanted us to do with it, dig a hole and bury it, I guess. So she has amended the bill that got passed, and I'll see if I can read it like it was before she introduced this amendment. It says, upon a prohibition of hazardous waste activities, it's prohibited to use open detonation to treat hazardous waste of World War II unexpended ordnance. Excuse me. Upon open detonation to treat hazardous waste with the exception of World War II unexploded ordnance. So remember, in the beginning, she said none at all. Then she made an exception that you could use it for unexploded World War II ordnance off base. And now she's come back and backed away from that. And she says she's added this language to the bill. She took out the phrase hazardous waste, etc., and added explosive hazardous waste except those which EPA and U.S. EPA have determined that no safe alternative treatment or disposal technologies or safe storage, transport, or management exists. So she says if you can't do anything else with it, you can do it now.
Then might as well repeal the law. Well,
she's repealed parts of that law. She does have a sunset. Then she added some uncodified sections. She wants EPA to promulgate some rules, and she has a sunset provision. After a period of 3 years from the enactment of this law, the permitting process to allow any open demolition except for emergencies will cease and will be reevaluated to take into consideration. So in other words, she's saying for 3 more years, you can do the open detonation at Taragi. And then she's got some legislative findings. The legislature intends to update the current open detonation regulations to allow for treatment of hazardous waste for cases where no safe alternative exists until such time that we are equipped with safer alternatives to open detonation. Couldn't she have thought of that in the beginning? You know, and Admiral, the Admiral wrote, said, yeah, can we talk about this stuff? Can we work something out?
And that was also the recommendation from the Guam EPA.
Exactly, yeah. Admiral Nicholson went the extra mile to try to talk sense to her, yeah. Now, I don't know what caused her to change her mind.
The recent ruling?
Well, and
sounds similar.
I don't know how much weight to give this, but I understand that Admiral Nicholson spoke to some public body here and said, yeah, come something like the 1st of April, we're not doing any of it. Anybody that finds ordinance, you're on your own. We're not doing any of it at all. So, you know, why would she be tempted to do this? You know, I know she's an environmental wacko, but, you know, here she is and walking backwards. And if you happen to see her walking around town, you'll notice those little black feathers in the corners of her mouth. It's because she had to eat some pretty heavy-duty crow here.
Well, she made it maybe she thought she was the governor.
Yeah, and then the governor could have done all of us a favor by vetoing it. Yep. Yeah. Okay, I've got about 4 minutes to go, so I'm going to start getting ready to say goodbye to our United States president. Next item on the card is Doug versus, what's his name?
Esteves,
yeah.
Mr.
I'll get to that.
Verbosity.
I'll get to that one tomorrow. Okay, on May 19th, 2021, here's what our president said. Biden blasted the audience at a Coast Guard commencement ceremony when his ripped-off joke fell flat because he botched a punchline. And here he goes. I can only assume, Biden said with a grin, that you will enjoy educating your family about how the Coast Guard is, quote, the hard nucleus around the Navy forms in times of war. But the cadets responded with puzzled silence. And then Biden went on to say, you are, you're really a dull class. Biden snapped, I mean, come on, man. Is the sun getting to you? Video from 1988 shows that President Ronald Reagan drew cheers with his smooth delivery of the one-liner that Biden failed to copy. Now, here's what Biden meant to say. I can only assume that you'll enjoy educating your family about how the Coast Guard is the hard nucleus around which the Navy forms in times of war. That makes sense, right? And you people that are now World War II buffs wouldn't remember this, but when World War II started, the Coast Guard, which at the time was under the direction of the Secretary of Treasury, Jose, because they started out as the Revenue Service. So it was transferred from the Secretary of the Treasury to the Secretary of the Navy, and it was integrated into naval operations. So in some of the landings, Coast Guardsmen actually drove the M-boats from the ship to the shore. And that's where the joke came in. You know, Coast Guard worked with the Navy, and Reagan is teasing them, saying, yeah, you guys were the hard nucleus upon, you know, the little Coast Guard, the big Navy, a hard nucleus upon which. But, of course, what I just explained to you would go so far over Joe Biden's head that the only thing that would be left to say would be, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Clubbing
Covering the documents controversy, I'm Jack Callahan. Fox News, the General Counsel of the National Archives, appearing before a closed-door congressional hearing yesterday on the classified documents found recently where they shouldn't have been. Some of the committee's Republicans saying he was forthcoming, but
they also feel like the National Archives as an agency hasn't been playing fair when it comes to the Trump and the Biden documents. The Oversight Chairman James Comer has a lot of questions. For example, why NARA did not tell the public about the documents that they found at President Biden's personal office before the midterm election. This, as Fox can now confirm, that FBI agents started searching the Penn Biden Center sometime roughly in mid-November after those documents were discovered.
Fox's Aisha Hasni, the White House counsel's office, and the Justice Department both declining to comment on the search. Speaker of the House meets with the president today.
While the White House insists Congress raise the debt limit without delay or conditions, President Biden is hosting House Speaker Kevin McCarthy today to talk about budgets. McCarthy says spending reforms must be part of any plan to incur additional debt.
I think we could find a lot of places we could have savings. We've watched what all this runaway spending has done, has brought us inflation.
Democrats point to multiple debt limit increases supported by Republicans during the Trump administration. The Speaker's office notes then Senator Biden's opposition to debt limit hikes during Republican administrations.
Fox's Jared Halpern in Washington. Tyree Nichols' family held a remembrance service at the historic Mason Temple in Memphis last night. His brother Jamal Dupree spoke.
My brother was the most peaceful person you ever met in your life. Most. He's never lifted a finger to nobody. Never raised his voice to nobody. If my brother was here today and if he had to say something, he will tell us to do this peacefully.
Vice President Harris will attend Nichols' funeral midday today. America is listening to Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Ben Domenech, Fox News contributor and editor of the Transom.com daily newsletter, and I'm inviting you to join a conversation every week with the smartest thinkers out there about the issues Americans face and where we're going as a nation. This show will feature deep dive interviews with newsmakers and some of your favorite Fox News analysts. I hope you'll join me as we dive into the fray. It's the Ben Domenech Podcast.
Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Another dramatic day in court Tuesday in the murder trial of South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh.
As prosecutors work their way through presenting evidence to jurors, they are also playing recorded conversations investigators had with Murdaugh in the days after his wife and son were found shot to death. One of those conversations bringing intense scrutiny over the wording of Murdaugh's assessment of who killed his 22-year-old son Paul, if he said I or they. The defense asking Special Agent Jeff Croft of the State Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, if it was all a misunderstanding. Listen closely to Murdaugh's words.
This is so bad. I did it so bad.
I did him so bad is what Croft told jurors he heard, but the defense argued their client actually said they did him so bad.
Fox's Laura Engel testimony continues today. Murdaugh charged with killing his wife and son.